I'm 14 years old and on the corner. One of my elders approaches. I don't know him personally, but I know that he is respected. I know that I want to be respected by him. He calls me over and asks me to take something to a friend of his. Now, I've heard of this happen before. And for some reason, I agree immediately. As he stands in front of me, I realize how tall he is. He has a slim build, but broad shoulders. He looks powerful, intimidating without trying. He hands me a tied up blue plastic bag about the size of my fist. I do what I've seen others do and stuff the bag down the front of my jeans. He gives me my directions, and as he does, he grasps my shoulder hard. He looks me in my eyes, and he tells me he trusts me. I feel like a grown-up. Suddenly, I feel like a man. I make the drop-off in a small park in a nearby estate. In exchange for the bag, a man hands me a small roll of 10 and 20-pound notes, and he treats it like loose change. Now, I had never noticed it before, but banknotes have a certain smell, a mixture of paper, metal, and dirt. I clutched the roll tight to my chest. It was the most money I'd ever seen. As I cycle back, I think about stealing the cash. I think about what I could buy. Some Air Max 95s to replace my high-techs, and some jeans that fit. But it's not the fear that stops me from stealing. I don't know it yet, but I'm investing in my future. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I understand that I have more to gain by being a part of his world, by fitting in, by being just like him. When I get back, I hand the money over. It's all there. He peels off a single 20-pound note, stuffs it in my pocket, and tells me I did good. He asks me my name. And from then on, whenever he sees me, he greets me like a brother. The feeling is intoxicating. I'm hooked. I crave his attention and his respect, and I'll do anything to earn it. He introduces me to a community of like-minded people. They're strong, they're smart, they're funny. They represent who I want to be. They become my new family. He teaches me how to drive. He teaches me how to fight. He teaches me how to make the best out of any situation. I am a young boy growing up in a man's world, learning how to be just like them. I don't know any different, and I don't want for anything else. But something goes wrong, and some of my new family get into some trouble. He manages to walk away unscathed. In my eyes, it just makes him more mystical, more powerful. He still inspires me. Then I hear the rumors. People say he snitched, and 2 weeks after my 16th birthday, he is killed. Nobody knows who did it, and nobody goes to his funeral. My new family are gone. I'm surrounded by people who don't trust me. I represent something contaminated. I'm alone again. And suddenly, I'm not sure what kind of man I want to be anymore. So, what is a man? Growing up in North London, the scariest people I knew were women. My mum, my teacher in year 5, various aunties who weren't really aunties, my friend's nan who chased me out of the house when I spilled a whole bottle of Ribena on the new cream carpet. I come from a generation of men raised by women. They ruled over us with no mercy. Beatings were regular, understood and condoned. Friends often wax lyrical. Remember the time mummy hit you with a hoover? We get it now. These were young women trying to teach young men the way of the world. Trying to get them to avoid the pitfalls. Trying to give them access to opportunities that they never had. But sometimes, mummy isn't enough. My first fist fight when I was 9 years old had me running home with a busted lip to a mother who really couldn't see the world from my point of view. In years to come, my friend Robin Travis will write a book called Mama Can't Raise No Man. A book which will once again unpack these feelings and show me for perhaps the first time the shared nature of our condition. I was lonely growing up. A single child until I was 10. I didn't know it then, but I craved a community and sense of belonging. Dads weren't really around. Older father figures in the home tended to be immigrant grandfathers or older brothers/cousins. I didn't have a brother who had done it all before. Instead, I had the immigrant grandfather, a man so culturally far removed from what I saw and heard on a day-to-day basis that his lessons became obsolete and outmoded. My mother did eventually find a great man who called me son. By having explained to me the moon and the stars as we would walk home hand in hand, the time would inevitably come where I would pick the lessons I felt he could teach me. My relationship with both of my parents became turbulent at best, and before I left home, I found myself pushing them further and further away. So, in the search of guidance and a desperate need to fit in, I did the only thing that seemed available to me and many others, turn into the young men we saw around us. We became a generation of young men raised by our peers, not our parents, following a strict guideline to survival and an often desperate quest to be seen as a man. To us, being a man meant fast cars and designer label clothes. It meant getting girls and making money. And it meant doing whatever was necessary. Violence and intimidation became a language. We used fear to make other men behave like us, all of us trapped in a cycle of thinking that showing any sign of emotion or vulnerability was taboo. Our ideas of men and male role models were blanks filled in by the only men we had access to. Lines were blurred and hazy. When does a boy become a man? And what does he have to do to get there? We idolized those who were able to change their circumstance, regardless of a system we felt was designed to hold us back. An invisible hand pushing us down, a shared chip on all of our shoulders. We would do whatever it takes. We would break rules and then we would break laws, justifying all of our actions by telling each other, well, we're owed at least this much. The times you were jailed, stabbed, or shot became medals. And boys who became men became legends. Their actions deliberated upon with wide eyes and open mouths on school playgrounds, their star rising with each retelling, thereby inspiring the next generation of young men as to who they might want to be like when they grow up. These are not decisions we made. These were decisions made for us by our predecessors, and all based on an extremely limited set of visible alternatives. Pathways were created and destroyed based on the information we had access to and what surrounded us. Sequences of uncontrollable events set into motion by the seemingly smallest of choices. Or at least, that's what happened to me. But then I was one of the lucky few who, through no fault or investment of my own, managed to stumble upon a much wider horizon of prospects than any of us had ever imagined possible. And at that point, my idea of men becomes as unclear as it had been when I was a boy. I had managed to get distance, but not necessarily clarity. The now owner of a redundant identity still in flux, but now, at least, with the freedom to choose. Freedom to decide for myself. A freedom I never had as a young man. A young man molded through pressure, a lack of information, and no fear of consequence. A young man who suddenly had to redefine his concept of man and the path that he had chosen. A path that began on a street corner when I was 14 years old and someone handed me a tied up blue plastic bag. What would you have done?